Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball Podcast. For this episode, I wanted to take advantage of an opportunity to learn more about the NCDA, their players, the teams, understand the North just a little bit more, and just kind of get used to new names and faces, or I guess voices in this case. And this came after my interview with Kevin Bailey from Dynasty during our recap of the Grand Rapids Open Dodgeball Tournament. Because I realized that I didn't really know too much about the NCDA still. I know that I interviewed Dylan Fettig with Brett during our first season, but it's just so huge and so vast and so still developing that I wanted to know more. So that being said, let's get right back to the NCDA. Here we go. Alrighty, well, here with me now is Kevin Bailey and Felix Peronne. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Felix, why don't you go ahead and go first? Tell us who you are and what team you play for, and then we'll go to Kevin.
Sure. So I'm Felix Peronne. I am the president of the National Collegiate Dodgeball Association and also the treasurer for USA Dodgeball. For fun, though, I play on the elite team for the Columbus Gamecocks.
Gotcha.
And I'm Kevin Bailey. I'm the chief of content for the National Collegiate Dodgeball Association, and I play for Grand Rapids Dynasty in Elite.
Very cool. And Kevin, obviously, we got to hang out and talk a little bit about the Grand Rapids Open Dodgeball Tournament a couple of weeks back, and I can only really speak for myself, but you brought up a lot of things about like the NCDA and about the North that I really just wanted to go into tangents with, but I was trying really hard to stay super focused on just that event. So thank you both for being willing to hop on and kind of give me like a crash course / rundown of the NCDA. So we'll go ahead and start there. And for those of you that may not be familiar, Brett and I kind of talked to Dylan Fettig.
Yeah.
Fettig. One day I'll get his name right. But he kind of gave us a real quick lowdown of the NCDA, and as I was listening to it, I don't really see any overlap in some of the questions I have because they're a little bit more thorough. But first, we'll just go ahead, and if you can, guys, and we'll start with Felix, kind of just elaborate a little bit more on the specific roles that you have with the NCDA and how you got involved.
Sure. So I've been playing dodgeball since 2004. I joined initially like a competitive it was like a super competitive rec league within in my county in Kentucky, and upon joining or going to Western Kentucky University, I joined their dodgeball club, and that was in 2008. And then I discovered that there are a lot of other people that enjoy dodgeball. It's not just me and my friends. And so I actually changed my major in college from computer science to organizational communication to help focus on kind of moving dodgeball in a more legitimate way. It's been kind of my pet project since then, starting with the NCDA just because I was so heavily involved with it just as a player. And then I kind of took on my first administrative role in 2010 when I was the director of nationals and hosted at that time, it was the largest national tournament for collegiate dodgeball to date. But yeah, so our organization spans from coast to coast now. We had our first West Coast schools play their first game this year. When I started out, there were only, I think, 13 teams, and we just inducted yesterday our 52nd team. Holy crap. So we're growing pretty quickly, and we're really happy with the expansion that we've made. So we've got members from 31 different states, 40 different schools currently. We have 10 schools that are defunct now for various reasons, but we have 821 members. So we are getting larger every year, and I'm hoping to break 1,000 next year. We've made some pretty good strides as far as expansion goes.
That's awesome. So you changed your major to help with growing the NCDA. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. So I really wanted to focus on legitimizing the NCDA and getting dodgeball to that next level, just because I saw the potential there. The foundation was laid by a couple of guys up in Chicago and Michigan early on, and but they just weren't taking the next steps as far as, we filed for the 501c3 status. We're granted that. We became a legitimate organization so we could seek out sponsorships. We now have an official apparel sponsor with Savage Ultimate, and then we also have travel sponsors with Lucid Travel, and then we're partners with Save the Children, which is a global nonprofit organization aimed at protecting children abroad. So,
dang. So, I mean, there's just so much places to start. So, protecting the children. Can you, like, what do you mean by that internationally? Like, is that like human trafficking or combating abuse or just all kinds of?
Yeah, so Save the Children, their goal is to not only help children survive, but to thrive. So they invest a lot of money into feeding children abroad, especially in third world countries, also treating them medically and getting them the vaccinations that they need, and then protecting them from, like you said, like the human trafficking and then the forced slave labor, and then also investing in education as well. So they build schools and bring teachers to these remote areas to just kind of help give these kids a fighting chance.
Gotcha. Man, so, I mean, the 501c3 status alone, that's huge. That takes a lot of work, and, I mean, you're legit once you have that, and I don't want to throw that word out there constantly, but, you know, traveling, partnerships, apparel, you guys are really going the distance, so to speak. Before I get too far into that, Kevin, you want to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more on what you do specifically for the NCDA?
Sure. And I'll kind of go at it the same way that Felix did. So I haven't been playing dodgeball as long as him. He said 2004, I think. That's crazy. But I got into it in 2011. I actually found out about YouTube video that was like a highlight video for college dodgeball, and I was like, wow. That's amazing. And it just so happened that I went to a school that the next year, that was my senior year in high school, that I saw that video. And the very next year I went to Grand Valley State University, which happened to have a dodgeball team. So it all worked out perfectly. And I just became obsessed with dodgeball from there, and started writing articles for the NCDA's website, I think my sophomore year of college. And from there, I ended up getting the role of chief of content after my junior year of college. So I've been doing that ever since. And basically what I do in my role is I create all of the social media content for us. And I direct the content team, which has up to 8 members. And we're just producing articles, podcasts, filming games, and everything in between for the league, just to make sure that we have a really good presence online, and people that might be interested in joining college dodgeball, when they look at our website or our Twitter page or Instagram, whatever it is, it looks like something that they might want to do because of all the great content that we're putting out there. So
yeah, it's vital. I mean, the last thing you want to do is have something dead, like a dead site or a dead page where, you know, it's like, oh, I live in Denver and I want to play in a Denver league, and I'm going to look up Denver Dodgeball, and you see something there, but their last league season was like 2015. You're like, well, there goes that, onto the next sport. So definitely understand how important that is. So Felix, you said you've been playing since 2004. You can appreciate this as much as I can, and it's kind of cool that Kevin, we kind of hinted on this when we last spoke too, where people like myself and Felix have been around for a while, and we've seen the progression and evolution of dodgeball. Me mostly on the outside of NCDA, but it's kind of cool to like come in to something that's already kind of pre-built in the perspective of Kevin, where, you know, it's gained all the momentum, it's gained a lot of traction, and it's like, I don't want to say it's a well-oiled machine. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just something that's already developed versus starting from scratch. I think that's really cool. It's kind of like how new players are seeing the sport now, where they come in at the height of Elite Dodgeball. They see, you know, Vince on ESPN, and they think, oh, it's always been like this, and that's obviously not the case. For sure. Okay, so Felix, this question is more for you. You said you've been playing since 2004, huh?
Yep.
Man, when did you start playing in 2004? Let's see who's older.
It was in December. It was right after Thanksgiving break. It was a winter league dodgeball league, and so I had to make the decision whether I was going to play on my friend's uncle's dodgeball team or I was going to go to youth group at church. So I decided dodgeball instead.
You clearly made the right choice. Well, I got you beat, man. I've been playing consistently since 2004 of April.
Nice.
I might even April. Yeah, because there was a couple months before the movie dropped. So
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I win barely.
You guys are both old.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like, gotcha, sucker. I'm older than you. Oh, wait a minute. That kind of backfired, but whatever. I'll roll with it.
Yeah.
Man, whole nother, just all kinds of questions. Okay, so when did you get involved with the NCDA then?
In 2008. So I started when I was a freshman in high school, and our league that we played in was 2 stingers and 4 of the 8.5-inch rubber balls.
Okay.
And I mean, those stingers, I'm so glad that I don't think anybody uses them anymore. They were just,
thank God.
They were just brutal. It was really intense, especially as a child. I can honestly say I was a child playing against men, but it was a good time, and I stuck with it all 4 years of high school. And then in 2008, when I went to Western Kentucky University, that's when I joined up with the NCDA and their club team.
Okay, gotcha. So did you participate in any of the NDL World Championship and conventions that took place?
I bought my plane ticket in 2010 to go out there, and then all of my friends backed out last minute, so I lost a good chunk of change on that. And then I did actually go in 2013, so I think I went the last year it was a thing.
2013. Okay, so we might have crossed paths then.
Yeah,
it was a thing, but my God, the kind of thing it was. I can remember pulling brackets pulling seeds from a hat. Like that was.
Yep.
Once that happened, I was like, they're done. I hope to God Elite or something else comes through, because this is it. Like it cannot get any worse than this. And
right.
It didn't, because it stopped. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, stingers were, speaking of NDL relics and whatnot. Kevin, have you had any experience with stingers before? Have you ever played with those at all?
Actually, I haven't. The first time that I really got into dodgeball was in college. So I picked it up by playing, with the 8.5. I played a couple times in high school, just in gym class, but the first time I really played dodgeball was in college. So 8.5, and then from there I've played foam a couple times, played the Sky Zone balls a couple times.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and go back to the NCDA real quick. And this is where I'm going to kind of lean on you a lot, Felix, because I was out in the Southwest, and to sum up my experience with the NCDA, being out in the Southwest, I was really envious of everybody that got to go to college up in the North Michigan, Great Lakes area, because dodgeball was just happening all over the place, and I was so impressed by the video clips I was starting to see, just all the teams, the fact that you can go to school and play for a team and represent your school. It was so awesome, but I was just so bummed because there was no representation in the Southwest. And so it was always something that was just there, but never really to the extent that I would have appreciated. So can you kind of just real quick cover what states you're in, or like you mentioned West Coast teams are out there now. So it sounds like you've expanded past the North area. Can you kind of elaborate that a little bit more?
Sure. So our 2 West Coast schools, we have Gonzaga and Oregon State. We have a couple more in the Pacific Northwest that might be popping up soon. We're hesitant to announce new teams until they are actually scheduled to play their first game, just because we've been let down so often. But we are working in the Southwest as well, trying to get some interest in there. But right now, like I said, on West Coast, we have Gonzaga and Oregon State. Kind of in the Midwest, we've got University of Nebraska. We've got Wisconsin, Platteville. We got a couple schools in Chicago with Northern Illinois University and DePaul University. Then we go as far east as we got Penn State and University of Michigan or University of Maryland, Virginia Commonwealth, Towson University. We just inducted our furthest south team in University of Central Florida. We've got a team in Texas, University of North Texas. We've got a school down in Louisiana. Then we're everywhere in between. It's growing pretty rapidly, but most of our players are from Ohio, Michigan, Virginia, Maryland, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Georgia.
Gotcha. So for the teams like the teams from the Northwest, like Oregon State, do they compete against other teams in other states? Like, do they travel to Illinois or Maryland, or do they just stay within the region?
That's a good question.
So we're trying to bridge that gap. Unfortunately, right now, that's not happening. They just started this year with the NCDA. I think their first game was back in October and November.
Yep.
So they're fairly new as far as the NCDA goes. I know Oregon State has had a team for a long time, or they've had an active club for a long time. I think going back to, I want to say 2008 even. But this is the first time they've actually played by NCDA rules against another school. So we're hoping to bridge that gap. And they were going to host a tournament in the spring, and we were prepared to have a team from the East Coast fly out there. But it all just comes down to funding.
Gotcha. So not to be like that guy, but I want to say Oregon's been around since 2006, and I know this because...
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the 2006 DWC, they showed up and they're wearing OSU gear, and it looked like they represented the college. I didn't know that they kind of took it upon themselves to do so, but from the outsider's perspective, they look like they were legit sent there from OSU, and so that's kind of what got me looking into colleges to begin with. So when I got home, I was like, there's got to be college dodgeball then, clearly, because it looks like it. So, and that's how I found Alex, and that's how I learned about you guys. So kind of cool how you triggered that memory for me.
Yeah.
But so hypothetically though, let's say a couple of good seasons pass by and you have like teams in Corvallis, teams in Portland, and we got some Seattle teams or what have you. Would they just stick within their specific regions, or would they still be looking to play against other states, other cities?
So ultimately, if we're able to have enough of a presence out west, what I would love to do is move to a conference system. Right now, we don't have that. That way, for a national tournament, we can kind of we can send the best of the best from each of the conferences to our national tournament.
Gotcha.
I just think it would make a more exciting postseason tournament. I love what we're at now, where everyone gets to play against everyone else. You get exposure to playing against new teams, but at the same time, if we are getting to the point where our organization is 75 to 100 schools, we're going to need to move towards something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this one, maybe Kevin can answer, just because you have a more fresh perspective. When you're looking at a new team coming in, is there any kind of like objection to adapting new rules? Felix mentioned that OSU just now started playing your style, which we can also get into. But is there any like resistance to that? Like, are there hurdles that you guys have when you're trying to pick up a new school or team?
Yeah. So that's sort of a case by case basis. But yeah, that's a really good question, because a lot of these new teams do come from whether it be a foam background, or maybe they have just been playing in the ultimate dodgeball at Sky Zone, so that's what they're used to. But they all have to sort of conform to what we're used to, which is the full court, 12 on 12 with the big 8.5-inch rubber dodgeballs. So I don't think that it's really comes down to whether they like it or not, but whether they can get used to it and adjust quick enough where they can be successful right away. But I know that every team that does join the league and sticks with it, it ends up being where, the 8.5 pinch dodgeball is their most enjoyable type of dodgeball to them, and that's what they like the most. So I guess it just comes down to, it's a case by case basis on what those people grew up playing or what they're used to playing before joining the league.
Gotcha. And I guess if you just start brand new, you kind of, I don't want to say you don't know any better, but it's easier to begin of like how you're saying, like you didn't start with stinger versus foam. You just straight up started with pinch, and that kind of just became your style, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of a good point, because one of the best things about the NCDA, in my opinion, is just the way that we're able to bring in so many new people to the sport of dodgeball every single year. And yes, the first type of dodgeball that they're going to be playing is going to be pinch 8.5, but all of these people from after playing, practicing 3 nights a week or whatever it might be, and going to tournaments every other weekend with their college classmates, they start to love dodgeball, and then from there they're willing to branch out to all different types of dodgeball, whether it be foam, whether it just be open division. Yeah, that's one of the things that with the NCDA, all these new freshmen, that's the very first type of dodgeball they learn is pinch 8.5. But we bring in new people every year, and they become people that just love and are passionate about the sport of dodgeball. So,
gotcha. Do you? And this may be a question for Felix, but either one of you can respond. On average, you don't have to be super accurate, but how many people would you say come into the NCDA their freshman year?
That's a Felix question, probably. Actually, I think he has the numbers on how many freshmen we have this year, but...
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we have 221 freshmen this year, which is about 27% of our organization right now. The freshmen are generally the largest group. As you get further into your studies and further into your major, you kind of have less and less time for dodgeball, it seems, unless you're extremely passionate about it. But the freshmen and sophomores, those are our biggest classes. It kind of dwindles down from there, but but I definitely feel like the freshmen take to it because all the freshmen are looking to join something, especially at the larger universities. Right. You have to become involved in something, otherwise you're going to get lost in the crowd. And so the dodgeball kids, they take to it and they kind of run with it.
And do you guys set up like booths during orientation days, or do you have like a pretty solid recruiting scheme, or does that vary per club?
Yeah, it definitely varies by team, but every team, they have their tactics. So just about every school has that, campus life night or whatever it might be at the start of the year, where they set up a table, and that's one of their ways to get people to sign up, get people's emails. And everyone has, other tactics, whether they're putting out flyers or whatever it might be. But from there, they get all of these new people from their school to, come to like a freshman dodgeball night. And I know that University of Kentucky had hundreds and hundreds of people at it one year, and they did it at midnight. But it's different at every school, but it's really exciting because you get that many new people that are freshmen in college. It's one of their first experiences in college, and they're just playing dodgeball with the college dodgeball team at the school that they're at. So it varies by team, but there's a lot of really cool ways that we try and recruit people to join our clubs.
Man, that's making me really, really jealous. I wish.
Yeah.
I mean, just picturing myself as a freshman in college, like dodgeball club, sure, sign me the crap up. And then just to see like how well you can progress. Cause like, I guess at this point, you can start your dodgeball career as a freshman in college, play really well for the 2, 3, 4 years that you're able to. And then lo and behold, there's UDC, there's Elite, there's places to go, I guess. It doesn't just have to end in college. On that note, and again, this may be another Felix question, how many people would you say you lose per year? So if you gained 200 or so players, how many do you lose?
We typically lose about the same amount, actually. We have a pretty I think the ratio, we did all this, we've been taking membership stats for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and I think the retention rate is something like 75%. But since we're gaining more schools every year into our organization, we're gaining more freshmen than we're losing seniors, which is great. but it all depends too. I mean, there are some schools that have 7th year seniors, and those guys they can't seem to graduate. Currently, we don't have any restrictions on how long you can be a student. Our only restriction is that you must be in pursuit of a degree. So we don't want someone just taking a swimming class just to be able to play.
So I might out him, but you don't want people pulling a Tim Wells where they're just taking a class just so they can play. That's exactly what he did.
So yeah, Tim was an interesting case. I actually had to look into him, but
do we have to vacate all of Towson's wins last year?
Right.
Oops. Oh man. So I guess should the day come when there's an NCDA chapter either at the U of A or ASU, I'll probably have to stay away unless I can fake an ID or something.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So and I don't want to be too presumptuous, but does it seem like the NCDA then might be the solution to recruiting and developing players so that they can feed into something like Elite Dodgeball and what USA Dodgeball is trying to take care of?
So I really do believe that's kind of where we're going. The NCDA provides a unique environment in that we're able to provide people with free dodgeball practice 2 to 3 nights a week, 9 to 10 months out of the year. You can become heavily involved. Dodgeball is such a high learning curve, especially for the new people. You can hone your skills in a year. We typically see with our players the freshman jump. So between your freshman and sophomore year, that's where you usually see the biggest skill leap. And if a player was terrible their freshman year, I never dismiss them. I always wait till sophomore year, and that's when I make my true judgment on them. So if you stick with it all 4 years, you can absolutely then recruit, go on to play in Elite or UDC or all the other organizations that we have.
And do you see that as part of like the overall goal with some people? So do you see people looking at Elite like, okay, that's my next step after college, or is it just kind of like,
oh yeah,
so
absolutely. Sorry to cut you off, but
no worries.
Yeah, that's something that we're starting to see more and more over the last couple of years. Is it seems like all of these college dodgeball players that have become so passionate about the sport, they're realizing that, their days as a college dodgeball player are almost up, and they're getting to the end of their collegiate career. Where do they go from here playing dodgeball? And we've been able to promote Elite a lot because that's something that both in the North and then on the East Coast as well is becoming larger and larger. So we definitely tell all of our players that that's where they should go once their NCDA days are over. But yeah, I think that, like Felix said, the direction we're going with the NCDA, it's the best way to sort of recruit and develop talent that will then go on to playing in, the dodgeball at its highest level, which is Elite or, the Ultimate Dodgeball Championship, anything like that.
That's awesome. You raised like an interesting thought, and that's there could be people that are looking at Dynasty as like, I want to play on that team. So they may have their sights set on, when, heaven forbid, Dylan or yourself, Kevin, like retire, they're looking at taking your spot maybe versus some of the problems that the West Coast teams may have. And there's nobody that's going to take my spot. I have to like find somebody else from like another city maybe that's, maybe just a couple years younger than I am or just available. It's not like there's like a farm that's, producing these players that can one day take over teams like Doom and Titan and Rise. That's really awesome to think about being a possibility just across the country and not so much just like the North area.
One thing that we've been doing with the Gamecocks, we play in a lot of like regional or local tournaments. Like we played at a church fundraiser tournament yesterday, and we didn't bring our entire roster. We brought in a few younger guys. So we brought in 2 sophomores from Ohio State University and then one kid from the Columbus College of Art and Design. They don't have an NCDA team, but it's someone that's interested in dodgeball. And so we're showing these younger kids that dodgeball does exist outside of the NCDA, and you can be involved. It doesn't only have to be in these little church tournaments. It can also be at Elite. And so with those three guys that we brought on, the younger kids, we convinced them to sign up for Elite, and they're going to be at round 1 in the North.
Nice. That's really cool. I think Kevin, you might have mentioned that team, or a team from Ohio that was brand new that came to the Grand Rapids tournament. Is that the same group of individuals?
That's actually a different team than what Felix just mentioned. But yeah, one of the teams that was at the GR Open was Ohio Legacy, and they sort of did something similar to what Gamecocks were doing. Only a couple of the regular players on Legacy were in attendance, so they just grabbed a couple guys from various different schools throughout the state of Ohio, and they brought a group of 8 guys to the tournament, and I think 6 of them aren't on the regular team, but now they kind of have the bug where they want to go to more elite tournaments, so maybe we'll see a bunch of them at round 1. Maybe they'll form a new team altogether. Who knows? But just the fact that they took that first step and they brought new people in onto their team to see a different type of dodgeball, that's the biggest thing.
Gotcha. Now they got the itch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Felix, you made a good point that I kind of wanted to backtrack on with the Gamecocks. You said that was your fun team for Elite. Did I hear that correctly?
We have fun with it.
Okay.
We take dodgeball seriously, but at the same time, we love to have fun. That's our biggest thing.
Gotcha. So are you, I don't want to say, because it doesn't necessarily take away the competitive aspect, but do you look at Elite as the place to compete, or is it just, as you said, it's just for fun? You don't really place too much emphasis on placement and rings and titles and all that other good stuff?
Most of our efforts are put into memes and making fun of Dynasty.
That's true.
Nice.
But no, we definitely want to win. We got 3rd last year in pinch at nationals. We're getting a lot better. We definitely have a lot of talent on our team. It's just as far as getting organized, because we're chaotic, which is that's just our nature. We want to place, we want to win, but we also want to have fun. All these tournaments that we travel to and spend all this money to go to, this is me hanging out with my friends for a weekend, and then we just happen to play dodgeball, and we're good at it. We just we're never going to yell at each other. That's the thing. We aim for no drama on our team, because that's not what it's about. Once that all starts kicking in, it's not fun anymore. Gotcha.
Yeah, I wasn't making sure. I just wanted to see how you guys perceive Elite, because it just seems like we all chalk up Elite as that's the apex of competitive dodgeball right now. That's just what's there, along with UDC. So I don't want to assume anything, but it just seems like that's becoming, or has become, the standard since whenever the NDL imploded to 2013, 2014. So
yeah. No, we definitely take Elite seriously, and we recognize it as the pinnacle of dodgeball in the United States right now, as far as talent goes.
Gotcha. Yeah, and plus, like you said, I mean, you can't be in college forever, so at some point you have to move somewhere else. So,
yep.
Do you guys feel like you can speak towards the North a little bit more? Actually, Felix, where are you currently located?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. And I'm really bad at this. I keep saying, I want to say the Rust Belt. I want to say the Great Lakes area. What actually comprises the North?
The North goes as far east as Ohio. South, I think Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio are as far south, and then it goes Michigan, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, Iowa. I think that's correct, Kevin?
Yeah, those are all the states. So I'm not sure. I think that there's a team from Kentucky that's interested in joining, and I don't know where they'll put them. I don't know if they'll throw them in the East region for Elite, or if they put them in the North. But as of now, the furthest south team I think might be Columbus Gamecocks.
Gotcha. And what is what is your involvement with Elite Dodgeball? Do you guys help set up tournaments, run them, or you just play in them and bring teams to them?
Yeah, pretty much we just play in them. I'm involved with Mark with USA Dodgeball, but I let Mark run Elite because that's his baby, and we always offer our help, especially with recruiting and getting new teams in. Glenn is always eager to ask, like, hey, do you have any NCDA teams that would like to join Elite? And we always jump at the opportunity.
Nice. Is that more or less the same with you, Kevin, and Dynasty?
Yeah, basically the same thing as what Felix said, but yeah, I think that one of the major things for both Felix and I with our role in the NCDA is just trying as hard as we can to recruit those NCDA dodgeballers to come play in Elite, especially if they're graduating and this is their last go around with college dodgeball. So the major thing for us when it comes to blending the NCDA with Elite is being able to get all of those people before they leave competitive dodgeball and get them to stick with it. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be there when they graduate too, because the Elite season and the NCDA season, they don't overlap very much. It's a great
exactly
stay involved over the summer for the NCDAers. You can play 3 major tournaments before the semester starts back up over your summer break, and it's just a great way to not only not let that rust build up in your arm, but just to get used to a different style of play. And since the throw lines are closer in Elite, you get better at catching. You become more accurate in that you have to constantly adjust your throw. So Elite's a great training tool for the current kids in the NCDA.
Yep, I say that. I remember saying that to players on my team when I was still in college, but then I say that to anyone that asked me about Elite is just, you play that during the off season, you're going to come back the next year for the NCDA and you're going to be so much better as a dodgeball player all around, whether it be catching, dodging, footwork, whatever it is. Elite just makes you so much better of a dodgeball player for just dodgeball as a whole. So if it's someone that is a freshman or sophomore in college and their main priority still is the NCDA, I still convince them you got to play Elite because it's going to make you better for the next NCDA season, So yeah, it's something that isn't just for seniors that are graduating, but for anyone that plays college dodgeball because the seasons do barely overlap.
Gotcha. And I can kind of attest to that because anytime we would come back from an NDL tournament or some kind of competitive, I guess really NDL is the only one at the time, we'd come back to Tucson and we'd play competitive or open gym, and it just felt like we had superpowers for a couple of weeks because we just were used to playing against a completely high caliber level player, and the spaces and dimensions were smaller, and it always felt like we were just supercharged. And that's so crazy that even though we look at Elite as the apex of competitive dodgeball and the place where people that are graduated from college can move to, they can still play for Elite in college. It's like almost like a lateral transition, maybe. Like it's not like, you don't see college football players playing in the NFL during their off season. That's kind of cool. I can't even imagine. Like, just imagine having people like catch them throwing at you, and then going back to a full half court of NCAA dimensional dodgeball. That ball's got to be coming so slowly, and you can just have all the time in the world to adjust and figure out what you're gonna do.
Yeah, that is a perfect way to kind of describe it too.
Man, so what, so I want to go back to how important it is to have the NCDA expand. But before I do that, a kind of a weird question. Do you guys have any rivals? So like when the NDL was forming, and Felix, you might be able to comment on this a little bit more. You had like the NDA, you had the IDBF, you had all kinds of other like competing factions that were trying to be like the head honcho of dodgeball. Is there anything like that with you guys on the college scene, or does NCDA pretty much own all the real estate?
Yeah, so we own primarily all of the market for college dodgeball. I mean, every college has their intramural foam tournaments that they host during the winter. But there's really not, to our knowledge, any other organized collegiate dodgeball. So we really haven't run into many issues with it.
Nice. And Kevin, were you going to comment on that also?
Yeah, basically the same thing as what Felix said. But when it comes to all of the other dodgeball leagues out there, the great thing about it is, we all complement each other in a way. And like Felix was mentioning earlier with the NCDA, having the NCDA grow and expand out west is only going to help all the other dodgeball leagues that are out there, because like a farm system to get people to join all those other dodgeball leagues. So,
that's yes. I don't know if you guys knew this about it, but I ran Tucson Dodgeball for quite a few years, and one of the things that's at the uppermost of most league organizers' minds, and it's not like I'm the exception by any means, is just recruitment and growth. And so, to come from a time when you did have competing organizations like the NDL and NDA going at it against each other for a while, it was really frustrating to see that, because that just stunted growth. It just it added to the problem that was just not needed. So if I were to do it again, if I were running a league right now, I would be hitting up NCDA, be like, how do I work with you guys to help me recruit players? Because they may not necessarily want to play my competitive or rec league now, but maybe down the road. Or even if I ran an elite team, like, I'm going to need replacements at some point. Do you have people reaching out to you? Do they know that they can reach out to you? Like, do you work with other than just college students to set up these schools and teams and chapters? Or
so we worked with Mark in the past from Elite, and we tried to set up a Texas college dodgeball championship. We tried to set that up this year. It ended up falling through, I think, just priorities, and then we couldn't get a good venue to host. But we're working with people to try to expand dodgeball in areas where dodgeball needs to be expanded. So Mark is from Texas, and he says he's got a lot of contacts down there, a lot of people that are interested in helping and everything like that. So we had the whole Dallas dodgeball community eager and willing to help us out. And so we kind of looked at it from the point of view of the NCDA will get some interest as far as recruiting new college students to start clubs at their team so they can compete in the NCDA. These guys or girls, they'll all stay involved with dodgeball, thus helping grow the Elite South region. And they're using Elite South players to help mold those players. We had Kenny Cox I think it was San Jose. They hosted a college dodgeball thing. A few teams came out from some of the community colleges in that area, and Kenny said it was a great time in that he had several people come up to him and just ask, like, hey, how can I be more involved with this? And so we are working with different people across the country as far as expanding, because like you mentioned earlier, in the beginning, there were those organizations that were competing for membership. Now we're trying to work together to help grow the sport in and of itself. We want to work together because we can help each other out. We're looking at this as more dodgeball is better dodgeball. So might as well just be involved in all of the organizations. You don't have to choose anymore.
Thank goodness. You would think that would be the stance and the attitude years back, but that just hasn't been the case. But as I've said on many podcasts, or at least as an afterthought, better late than never. And even now, it's when I was talking to Nicole about like Team USA and how it feels like they're now just doing things the correct way. You look at how long dodgeball's actually been around, since 2004, 2003, and to see these movements be made now within like a 10, 15 year lifespan, it's not bad. Especially I guess since it's within our dodgeball lifetime, it's really cool.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so it's again, and I'm probably going to sound like a broken record when it comes to how nice it is that everyone's getting along. Can you, and I guess this is more for Felix maybe, but can you kind of elaborate on what you do with USA Dodgeball and how that's kind of helping with NCDA? and everything that you've got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we thought the executive board for the NCDA, we started talking about this back in November of 2016, I believe, just kind of throwing together the idea of setting up a formal feeder system from the NCDA to Elite Dodgeball. And we came up with this long presentation we were going to give to Mark and Glenn and Tim Wells at Elite Nationals about how the NCDA is pretty much like setting the stage for the future of dodgeball, especially in the North and the East, and we're hoping to expand the other regions. And so we came up with a concept of USA Dodgeball and all of this. So we set up a meeting with Mark Acom, Jake Mason, and Glenn Spacher, and pitched them this idea. And they said, hey, we've been kind of thinking about the same thing. And so that was really not only refreshing, but it was a huge relief too, because we weren't the only ones thinking about it's time to unify dodgeball in the United States. So working with Mark, Jake, Kate Cairns from Boston, and then Alex Benepe, who represents the UDC in Sky Zone, the five of us worked together to start USA Dodgeball. We became incorporated in October of this year. We were granted 501c3 status in the end of January of 2018, and we're moving forward. Our goal is to not only unify dodgeball in the United States, but to embrace diversity. And so that's diversity in play styles, in everyone as a person. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcome to play who wants to play. And I think that's just our overall goal.
And that is awesome. So you 501c3, that came up again.
Yeah.
So is this different than NCDA's 501c3? Like, you're both nonprofits?
We're the same class of 501c3. So we're both 501c3s, 509As, which means that we are a amateur sports organization. Mm-hmm. And so it is the same, but our goals are different. So, for the NCDA, our goal is to foster an environment for competitive collegiate dodgeball in the United States. And for USA Dodgeball, it's just to bring everyone together under one umbrella to help promote and develop the sport of dodgeball in the United States.
Gotcha. So this might sound like a really, really weird question. Do you, and this is for the NCDA and for USA Dodgeball, do you guys have the opportunity to act as a fiscal sponsor for, say, my team, that Dick's Sporting Goods wants to give us $300 to go represent, I don't know, Tempe for the Elite National Championship, but they want that tax write-off status. I can't give that to you because I'm not a corporation. I'm not a 501c3. Can I go to you guys and be like, hey, if you accept this check, can you give them that tax deduction and give me that money? That way Dick's is happy and then we get that money. Is that something? It's a really weird question. And the only reason why I'm asking that is because I looked into that when I was running Tucson Dodgeball. Like, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to be a 501c3, except it didn't make sense for a small little dodgeball chapter in Tucson to have this crazy tax exempt status and go through all those motions. So kind of a weird question to ask, but that was more of like
No, that's come up actually a lot in the last few months. Okay. And I honestly had no idea that was a need that some of our teams wanted filled. And so we are working towards something like that. I know that with Elite, that was one of their original goals, was to be able to provide that EIN that teams can use to get sponsorships for their teams. Right. And I believe you can actually work with Mark if any teams are willing or have those needs. I believe that he can help you out with that. For USA Dodgeball, that's not really in our scope. And then for the NCDA, we've lucked out with all of our teams. They have to be registered student organizations at their university, so they're covered by their university. With that, that's great in that they already have those tax identification numbers through their sport club department and everything like that. But it also prevents people from getting sponsorships. So a lot of universities have specific deals with certain vendors. So some schools can only use Nike apparel. Other ones can use whoever they want. Some schools, they have to stay at certain hotels. It provides a lot of headaches, but also it provides a lot of relief within the NCDA.
Gotcha. I'm glad you knew what I was talking about, because that's such an in the weeds question that I have just been it's been in the back of my mind for a long time. So when I saw USA Dodgeball get announced, I was excited because I saw things like that finally happening for people, because sometimes it's really deflating when you have a sponsor that wants to hook you up with some money, but then if they're not getting the tax write-off, it's a no deal. And so I think if that's something that Mark can offer, and if he's listening, you really need to blast that and let people know, because that just opens up a whole nother realm of being able to ask for something but give something back in return. So
yeah, and we don't want to put all the burden on Mark either. If this becomes something where a lot of teams are really asking for this, I have absolutely no problem with setting up. I've done this for 2 organizations already. I have no problem setting up another one that's kind of like a players association, where that's what this is for. Is the purpose is to provide companies with that tax identification number so that they can be happy and our players can be happy. If that need is there, we will absolutely work to get that in the works.
See, now we're nerding out. I've always wanted a players association for reasons just like that. Insurance for the players, so they are not destroying their fingers and not going to have crazy arthritis when they're growing, when they're older. And then also that kind of sponsorship. So it sounds like it's on its way. And I probably don't sound, but I can be more excited for it. It's really great to have that stuff finally show up. And like I said earlier, it's better late than never. And I could probably talk what ifs and what's down the horizon, but I would kind of like for you guys to do that. It sounds like with everything that's going on, 2018 is looking really positive. Is there anything else that's kind of in the works that you guys, either of you, are able to speak towards that we haven't covered yet?
Well, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to Jacob Lesky, who's our director of league expansion, because the most exciting thing with NCDA right now is just how quickly we've been able to expand over the last 2 or 3 years, and just all of these new teams that are joining the league. So that's one thing that we can speak of. We can't mention every single team that might be joining because, like Felix said, sometimes we get let down and they don't follow through all the way. But that's one of the most exciting things for me right now, is just how many new teams are coming in and joining the NCDA over the last few years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and from a USA Dodgeball perspective, I'm sure you've seen on Facebook and on all the other social medias that I'm not super familiar with, the USA Dodgeball membership drive. That's something that we're trying to promote. Yeah. With that, it's not just we would like money to give out the T-shirts or the coolers or the lawn chairs or whatever other types of swag that we're offering. It's also we want to invest in our players. So like you mentioned earlier, you want sponsorships, you want insurance for players and things like that. With the funds that we're getting from this membership drive, those are absolutely goals that we want to achieve. And so when we have the funds to actually do things, it's great to be able to say, yeah, we want to do this and we want to do that. But at the end of the day, a lot of people need to be paid to do this. And I can say with 100% certainty, since I am the treasurer of USA Dodgeball, no money is going to any of the executive board for USA Dodgeball. We're all volunteers. We're doing this because of the love of the game and everything like that. Every single dollar that's been donated is going back to the sport and developing. One thing that Kate Cairns wants to do is she wants to start up youth leagues in some of the major cities. And so if we can get kids started in on dodgeball at an earlier age, it's going to help just with the growth of dodgeball even more. And so she really wants to focus on, I believe, the middle school and high school age groups. And that's going to be huge for for not only for USA Dodgeball, but for the future of dodgeball.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so two things. There's definitely needs to be the type of people that are willing to step up and get those things that we all want. Like, we want a national organization to host tournaments. Well, it took some people stepping up to actually make that happen. We want a better organization because the NDL is not fulfilling that need. It took people to do that. Same thing with 501c3 status and whatnot. The other part is we need people to look towards the future. So I think Kate's on the right track for darn sure. For what it's worth, I mean, it's one thing to have college students feeding into Elite to keep the sport going. Completely different thing if we get youths that are like super excited to play about dodgeball coming into middle school and high school, because it just perpetuates the machine. It just keeps it going, and that's exciting to hear that people are thinking about that and making steps towards making that happen. I did want to ask if there are any events that are coming up aside from Elite events, because I'm very Elite West Coast centric, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything, because a good example is the Grand Rapids tournament. I had no idea that was even happening until I saw Andrew Ketchum was flying somewhere. And in my experience, the kid's only flying somewhere if there's dodgeball. So lo and behold, boom, there's an event. Holy crap, I want to cover this. Let's talk. And that's how me and Kevin met and started talking about it. Is there anything else that's coming along that, aside from Elite, that we should be wary of or excited for?
Yeah, so I mean, the NCDA has our national tournament coming up in April, and this will be the biggest one we've had yet. We're expecting anywhere between 24 and 28 teams to show up. So that might be something cool to talk about. And then I'm trying to look on the USA Dodgeball page. I believe we already announced it, but there's a large tournament. I just need to make sure that we've already publicly announced it before I
give it away,
mess up something. So we can talk about the NCDA Nationals, and then I will try to find this event and see if we can announce it.
What city is it in?
Let's see.
Or can you not give us that hint?
No, I'm not going to give it a hint yet because, again, I don't want Jake to yell at me. So
yeah, we don't want that.
Is it the Minneapolis one?
No.
All right. I didn't think so because that's been announced for a while.
Yeah, and I think this one got announced too. Or teased. I don't know. I'm looking. But, we can go ahead and talk about the NCDA Nationals. And then I don't think...
While we're on the USA Dodgeball thing, you could... If you find that tournament, you can probably start with that one, but
yeah,
probably doesn't matter.
Okay.
So with NCDA Nationals, again, that's any team that's part of the NCDA. Is it like an open invite, or do you have to earn a seat for
so
it?
Actually, this year we added a new rule, so you have to play 3 games throughout that season to be eligible to go to Nationals. But prior to that rule being put in place, it was every single team that was in the league was allowed to go to Nationals pretty much.
Now, would every team do that, or would travel issues and money kind of get in the way?
No,
I think it's
with travel,
we had like a 90% attendance rate over the last few years.
We've had what?
Like 90%, I'd say.
That's
maybe not high.
Well, see, last year we had 22 teams show up, but the league was 30-some teams, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not
75.
I guess of the teams that played at least 3 games, we probably had 90% of those teams show up, but there's always the team that is just starting out and only went to 1 tournament and they played 2 games, or
right.
a team that just like North Texas, they're so far away from everyone, maybe they only get 1 or 2 games in a year. Yeah. So it depends on so many factors, how committed the captain is and all of that. Like Nebraska's out in the middle of nowhere compared to everyone else, and they've played in so many different tournaments this year just because they're so committed. They're willing to pay for whatever it costs to go to Chicago 3 times a year and just playing tournaments. So
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think we'll have, what'd you say, Felix, like 25 teams this year at Nationals?
Yeah, at least.
Which is, it's so hard when you have, instead of having like the volleyball sized court, and games last like 10, 15 minutes, these are 50-minute games on a full dodgeball or on a full basketball court. So it's quite the burden when you have that many teams showing up, and that's how long games are and how much space one game takes up.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of those things I was going to ask, where, you know, the format is obviously different. So that doesn't change for Nationals, and it's the same thing?
The play, you mean like the play style?
Yeah, the play style, time limit.
Yeah, so actually we have one rule in place where if there's like restrictions on how long we have the gym, you can shorten each half from 25 minutes to 20 minutes. And we usually do that on the first day of Nationals, which is just pool play pretty much. So there's no elimination games on the first day of Nationals. It's just everyone's going to get 3 games on that day. But we'll cut it down to 20-minute halves just to make things go a little bit quicker. But everything else is the exact same.
Yeah, it's a long day.
Yeah.
It's a very long day.
It's a lot on the arms when you consider each game is 50 minutes straight, and they're playing 3 games on Saturday, and then Sunday you could play up to 5 games now. So like the teams that make it all the way to the championship, they'll be on game 8 on the weekend of 50 minutes of dodgeball where you're pinch throwing the ball as hard as you can every time. So
yeah, so not to take away from people that make it to the final rounds with Elite, but these people have been getting after it for the entire day. Like they're fighting for life at that point. That's insane. That's a lot of dodgeball.
Yeah, I'd say probably the most exhausted I've been was at NCDA Nationals, one of my last years, just because of how much you're throwing and it's pinch throwing both days. So it just takes a toll different than, you know, not to take away from Elite, because that is such a toll on the arm too, but throwing open is so much different from throwing pinch, where by the end of day 2, when you've played all day, both days, your grip strength is just toast, and you just can't do it anymore.
and I can honestly say, with playing both styles, after a day of NCDA play, I was more mentally exhausted than I was for Elite, because of like all the strategy that's involved with it. And then you have, at that point when I was playing, it was 15 on 15 with 10 balls, and so you're just mentally exhausted from playing so many of dodgeball when you're focused on so many things. With Elite, I feel like I can go out there, just throw as hard as I can, and then I'm done for a second. With the NCDA, I was just mentally exhausted the entire time.
Your voice gets killed by the end of the first day too, and all of that.
From all the yelling.
You're yelling at a bunch of freshman dodgeball players that don't know exactly what they're supposed to do. Yeah.
So
stressful but worth it.
Let's get into that real quick. So can you guys briefly like kind of run me through the actual setup? So it's a full-size basketball court, right? That's the court dimensions, court size?
Yep.
All right, so is there a center line, a neutral zone, how many balls, any rule variations other than, I still can't let go of this one, Kevin, where you can have like 1 foot out of bounds and still be considered in?
Yeah, the soft boundaries.
Yeah, so why don't you go ahead and run me down just like a real quick setup of how a game goes.
Sure. Felix, I'm probably going to forget some things, but yeah, so it's the full basketball court is what we play on, and there is, there's no center line per se. We have we have a neutral zone, so we have 2 attack lines is what we call them, and that's basically the throw line. So it's at 30 feet from the baseline on both sides. So on a full basketball court, you've got a pretty big neutral zone, and that plays a huge impact on the way that people play, because the neutral zone's like 50 feet long or whatever it might be. But yeah, we have the soft boundaries where you can have 1 toe in bounds and you're still in. Yeah. Felix, what I forget?
Did we cover how many balls?
So it's 12 versus 12.
Yeah, 12 v 12. Used to be 15 versus 15 until this year.
Right.
Yeah, I'd been proposing moving to a 12v12 system for, I think at that point, like 5 years. And finally this year it passed. One thing that's unique about the NCDA compared to other dodgeball organizations, we let our members vote on our rule changes. So each team gets one vote, and you basically determine what the future of the game will look like. So we posed a vote, and not everyone, but the majority agreed to move to a 12v12 system. So as far as rule variations from other organizations, we do have the clean blocking rule, but it's only for the person holding the ball. So if Kevin and I are on a team together, a ball is thrown at me, I block a ball into myself, and then it hits the ground, then I'm out, which is pretty standard. But if I block a ball into Kevin, who's my teammate, he's fine. So the blocking is only you're the only person that can be out from a deflection block.
Yeah, and that was a rule that we recently changed too, where 2 years ago, if you blocked the ball into your own foot, you were allowed to stay in as long as it made contact with the ball you were holding first and not your foot. And that was just so annoying, and it was inconsistent with every other form of dodgeball, so we needed to make that switch.
Thank God. And that was like dirty blocking, right?
Yeah. Dirty blocking, yep.
Yeah.
And then we're really trying to change. Well, I personally have proposed the rule a couple times, but trying to get that throw line from 30 feet down to at least 27 feet, maybe even closer. But the throw line's so far away compared to Elite. I think it slows down the style of play a little bit. So if we moved it up to 27 feet, I think that games would be a little bit more fast-paced, a little bit more enjoyable to watch for spectators. So we're trying to fix that as well. And then, Felix, you can go ahead and talk about the how we have a shot clock instead of burden ball, which,
right.
Yeah, that's something that is also unique to the NCDA. But I think I like the shot clock type of dodgeball more. When it's like a 12-on-12 situation compared to like burden ball where you're just throwing one ball back and forth the whole time.
Yeah, so with the shot clock, each team has to make a throw every 15 seconds, and it can't just be just a throw up against like the highest part of the wall. It has to be within what we call a legitimate attempt zone. So it's within a step and a lunge of a player. So a ball that can be made a play on. And we have two referees. We have a head referee and assistant referee, and then we also have two shot clock counters. And those people maintain a 15-second count for each team. Each team has to make one throw every 15 seconds until you get down to 5 players. Once you have 5 or less players, then you move down to a 10-second clock. And this helps kind of speed up the game and help finish things out in a faster pace. I think the year before I joined the NCDA, there was no shot clock, and a lot of teams would just hold on to the balls and stall out, especially if they were ahead of the team that they shouldn't be beating.
That's frustrating.
It was a good implementation. We've thrown around the idea of adopting the burden ball, just because it seems like that's what a lot of the other organizations use, but it's just so tough on such a large court and with so many balls that we have, because if you were to get down to 2 players, the whole strategy would just be, if you're the other team, throw all your balls at the 2 players, and then they somehow have to get rid of 6 balls.
10.
At least. Yeah, it's not gonna. It would just be really messy, and we just don't think it would work out very well.
So you see that happen in Elite a lot, especially towards like the once we get into bracket play. So like you'll have the burden ball, and then it gets to the point where that person, if they're just gassed or if they know that person's a really good catcher, they'll just roll the ball over.
Yep.
And you'll see these like just pathetic like half attempts at a throw. I think it's really cool that you kind of enforce like within a lunge catchable distance of throwing, where at least you can make a play off of it, because
right.
Yeah, it's so I totally get why you do it, and I can't say like I wouldn't do the same if I'm in that person's shoes, but like it's so frustrating to watch that. 'Cause he's just like, come on, play dodgeball, guys. Like, stop this nonsense. And yeah, I think that's a really cool thing to implement. But that's just Elite with the small dimensions. So I can't imagine like you have half a basketball court to try to launch a ball into.
Yeah, it works in Elite the way that it is. With the burden ball, it works perfectly. But trying to do that with a 12-on-12 on a full basketball court, it's just so different of a style of play that it wouldn't match up for that.
Yeah, it changes it up a lot, I'm sure. Did we cover how many balls were in a game?
There's 10.
10. Okay, so 12 players, 10 balls. So it's not like maybe 2 or 3 people are dictating the pace, because like in Elite, it's 6v6, but usually you have one person that's teeing off, and that will kind of go back and forth for a little bit until the other team gets dwindled down a little bit. With your setup, is there a lot more I don't say engagement, but is there a lot more like aggression, a lot more people throwing at the same time?
Yeah, I'd say more team throws happen, but also, like you kind of mentioned, one person can't dictate the pace of the game. One person can't take over a game as much. It's kind of the beauty of college dodgeball is teamwork. If you don't have good teamwork and you don't have depth on your team, you have no shot at winning, really, because it's all about working together too.
Yeah, and that's where you can lose your voice within a day. Yelling
at 11 other people on the court.
Yeah, exactly.
I know when I was at Western Kentucky University for 6 years, 4 years in undergrad and 2 years in grad school. And my last year, our team wasn't that great. We lost a lot of people the year before, but we implemented a lot of plays and we had a lot of strategy. And we had, I think, like the biggest upset of that tournament at the nationals event. Our team, which was ranked closest to the bottom, we beat out the Ohio State University's club, who was hosting the tournament. So they had all their players. They all had beds to sleep in. Meanwhile, my team was stuck 8 people to a hotel room and people sleeping in the bathtubs. But we were able to implement a lot of strategy and plays and things like that. And if you can outsmart your opponent, you definitely have an edge. It's not just about firepower.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the more competitive you get, the more you actually have to have some kind of I don't want to say wits about you, but strategy definitely is becoming more and more of a thing versus just raw power and throwing as hard as you can. And you have those people that are just explosive cannons, and they can probably take out entire teams by themselves. But if they mess up, then it's on the rest of the team to kind of mop up that person's mess, and you have to start thinking strategy and thinking how you're going to outsmart the other team and get them to force up easy catches and whatnot. So just trying to imagine that times 12. Man, it just makes me really wish I could have played NCDA that much more. It sounds like a blast, and I think there will be a day when University of Arizona here in Tucson and ASU and in Tempe we'll start to see that happening, and we'll start to see people coming into Elite from NCDA. I think Paige is a pretty good example of somebody who came in to Elite from NCDA and followed that path, and is just a monster. Like, she's amazing now. So I really hope to see more of that come along. I don't think I've got any other questions. I definitely know I could be talking dodgeball for like another hour or two easily. Especially with both of you guys. It's just really awesome being able to get a better feel for what the NCDA is about and understand more of the region. I'm definitely, and I keep saying this, I'm West Coast 8.5 Elite biased, but the fact that somebody else has been around since 2004 is pretty awesome.
There's a few of us old guys still playing, but
still going after it. Yep. Before we close, was there anything that either of you guys wanted to cover or announce or mention before we sign off?
USA Dodgeball on February 12th made a kind of ambiguous post on their Facebook page. It says it reached about 8,300 people, so you might have seen it, but the hashtags are WDBF, World Dodgeball World Championships, and it looks like the picture is looking over Los Angeles. So
take from that what you will, but look for that at near the end of third quarter of 2018.
Okay, so, well, with the Nationals, this isn't the World Championship you're alluding to, right? Something else?
It is. The hashtag is Dodgeball World Championships, WDBF.
Okay. I think I might know that one already. I think that might actually be out there, but I'll just leave it at that. And when we sign off, I'll take it for what it is and see if anybody else catches on or if it's already out there. How about you, Kevin? Anything else that you wanted to throw in?
No, just thanks again for having us on. And of course, anyone who's listening, if you're interested in making a team at your school, or if you know someone that might be interested and they're in college still, send them our way. Check out our website, ncdadodgeball.com, or get them in contact with either Felix or myself, and we'll go from there, because as Felix said, more dodgeball is better dodgeball. That's what we're all about. So if we can get more people to join the league, that's perfect.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if people are playing dodgeball, we all win. So I hear you on that one for sure. Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and end the interview there. So that was fun. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to actually pull off having multiple guests. So Kevin, Felix, thank you both so much for letting me use you guys as guinea pigs. But also, more importantly, thank you so much for being willing to hop on and help me shed more light on the NCDA and getting to understand a little bit more of what you guys are about and what you do. It's very exciting to see that there is a future dodgeball where people will be coming in through their college age and continuing to play post-college with Elite, with UDC, and just seeing the potential for growth. It's very encouraging. It's very awesome to see throughout the years develop and become what it is today, and to see where it's kind of going in the future. As mentioned in previous episodes, my aim is not to stay West Coast heavy. I really do want to venture out there, engage new faces, new regions, territories, what have you, and just get a really good idea of what's going on in the dodgeball world. I feel like this new format might be a great way to do so. So I'm really curious to see or hear your thoughts on what it was like listening to two guests, because this could very well be how we do recaps for major events, to include the whole slew of Elite Dodgeball tournaments that are coming up in the next couple months. So very exciting. 2018 is just looking awesome for dodgeball. It's a great time to be a player, great time to get involved in the game. And if you love dodgeball as much as I do, it's an exciting time to even talk about it. So on that note, feel free to send your comments, questions, concerns, feedback, suggestions, all of the above my way. Have a great Friday afternoon, evening, whenever this is released. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time. That was good. I got the warm fuzzies on that one.